All right, folks, here we are again with more people, more problems with your host, me, Chelsea, and also Britt.
Me?
Me. So we're happy to be here today. Bit of a winter recording episode, but probably not for Britt because she's in
Yeah, I guess sunny Arizona,
sunny Arizona, and it probably feels like summer. But for us in Ottawa, looking like our first big snowstorm of the season is starting to hit just now. So that's a shivering and cold and depressing. But anyways, we're still happy. We're still chugging
bring
along.
this up. Let's bring this up a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. No, we're feeling good about it. Have a great episode in store for everyone today. Again, we'll keep some of the examples private. I don't know. What do you mean?
More vague if we
Did I
need to,
or
but
more
yeah.
vague? We won't mention anyone's names and stuff like that. But I think a lot of the concepts that we're going to discuss today are very overarching
Yeah.
and how we build trust in our organizations and how we maintain trust and why the hell does it even matter? So
Yeah.
with that, Britt, I'm going to pass it over to you to kind of dig us into this.
Yeah, and maybe I'll start with I guess an assumption I had going into the workforce, which was like trust doesn't matter at all. Like why would trust matters in one-on-one personal relationships? It matters with my family, with my friends, but why would it matter in the workforce, like in my job? And what I quickly realized was I don't think I had a real understanding of what trust was. And then I started to understand why it was an important and the overarching you know, light bulb moment is trust is in every relationship. So why the fuck wouldn't
Hmm.
it matter in your work colleagues, in your relationship with your boss, in your relationship with the organization, like the entity? I think it actually matters in all those different ways. And so, what is trust?
Hmm.
And I think everyone's going to have somewhat of a subjective interpretation of what trust is. It'll be slightly different um, but the way I think about trust is it's a confidence in the reliability in the so reliability, more consistency, I guess, but reliability, integrity, and
Transparency.
I would say reliability, integrity, and honesty.
Okay.
th- Those would be the three of trust, but I think that they build out like what does that mean? And so when you think about reliability, I think that is, dependability, consistency, predictability. It's showing up, every day and trusting that you will have an office to walk into and that it's not going to all of a sudden shut down. It's
Mm.
trusting that, if you have daycare provided for your children, that they will be there to support your children in a way, in a reliable way, in a consistent way
Mhm.
of what you're putting out there. I think integrity is more of that underlying like moral compass. It's that ethical nature. It's probably believing the value system underneath what they're doing and understanding it and sharing that same integrity or beliefs around it.
Sure.
And then honesty, I think that's maybe the vulnerability. It's the honest approach to things, knowing what you're going to get, you know?
Okay. So, three kind of main concepts of trust right here that we've broken down.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I would define it because I think it can get so blurry because there's so many words or labels that resonate with each of us, and that's that subjectivity of it, that then we go, "Oh, yeah, but to me, it's like, this." And I think if we distill it the most and we can just land on some labels, then we'll be able to have a really good discussion.
Yeah.
And so, hopefully that resonates with everyone, which is integrity, reliability, and honesty. And that is how you would measure trust within a relationship. And I would actually get everyone to think about whether it's a best friend, a spouse, a family member, who you have a lot of trust with,
Mhm.
does that ring true, those three things? And maybe think about someone you don't. And I'm sure it wouldn't be that. I've had friends, we've joked about this, but, friend cleanse, where you decide that you're not going to pursue a relationship anymore. And generally speaking, it's because I didn't have trust. Like there wasn't honesty. It felt like everything was, fake or said to
Mhm.
manipulate the situation. The integrity, we didn't have the same value system. I didn't
Yep,
believe the ethical nature of it underneath of it was true, and I couldn't align to it. And reliability, like each time I got something new. And so I couldn't predict. And so it made it feel very risky and unsafe. I didn't trust that I could be there and be myself. And maybe that actually goes into like, why is trust so important in relationships, more specifically, and like work wise? Because I think if you don't have trust, you don't have creativity, like we talked about. You can't fail. You can't put yourself out there. You can't
yep.
resolve conflict
You can't
faster
resolve
because
conflict,
you do
exactly.
not have that
It's not strong enough.
belief.
You don't have a
Yeah.
strong enough relationship to come back from
Yeah.
conflict necessarily, and then it's obviously a struggle to resolve, but you might not even come back from the conflict, so you don't have that solid foundation, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's almost scary because, when you think about trust, it can be built so slowly. And generally it is, especially if the individual has been burned before. If they have everyone comes into every relationship with an experience that they've lived and it's going to influence their future. And so, depending on that, you might come in a little more ready to trust or very
Sure.
hesitant. And so it can take a long time to build, but it can be disappeared, it can be dissolved in an instance.
In an
And
instant.
so it's such an elusive.
I mean, it is, and I think a lot of people relate to that in personal relationships who've been in, let's say, romantic relationships who've,
Mhm.
had issues in the past or had trust issues in the past. To build that trust with a new partner, it doesn't matter how amazing they are. That can take a sustained amount of time,
Yeah.
your own effort on your part to continue to grow, but also that individual as well to continue to show you that they're going to be building that trust. I think through those main concepts that we just discussed. And I think
Yeah.
that holds really true in organizations as well. You can be someone, and I've been someone in a leadership role or management role, for example, who's come in new team for me, but they're coming off of having a leader that was not supportive, didn't have that strong, trusting relationship with them. Of
Yeah.
course, they're going to be mindful at first and kind of wary and scared and whatnot. What's this person's going to be like? And that means you kind of have a mountain to climb, regardless, right off the get go, that
Do you
you
think
need to be building.
relationships can last if there is no trust? Like, do you see it as very black and white, or do you see it as more nuanced?
I think relationships can last, but it doesn't mean they're good relationships.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean
Yeah.
they're productive relationships. I mean, I can have a relationship with an employee in which, maybe they don't have trust in me or I don't have trust in them. It could be a relationship. It can be, like you said, a very superficial relationship.
Yeah.
Is
Or
it
even a very
actually
toxic.
doing what we need it to do? And like in terms of, let's say if you're in a personal relationship with someone and you don't have that trust built, great. There's another friend showing up to your birthday party once a year. Isn't that fantastic? But are they there for you throughout the year? Are they there for you in your moments of need? Or are they just there when there's a bunch of booze and food being served and a bit of a
We all know
party
those
going on?
friends.
We all
We
know those
all
friends
know
and we
those
got rid of
friends.
those friends, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, same goes for relationships in the workplace as well. Great when someone's there when it's got a little bit of there's a bit of a tension on them and save the day complex, but are they there for the little things that build up
Yeah.
as well, like, and that can go both ways from an employer or manager perspective, employee
Yeah.
leader perspective. So I think that that's real. Just doesn't mean it's a good relationship. Is it performing, is it productive as it needs to be? Highly doubt that.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, so many thoughts all of a sudden. One of them is, I think you're right. I tend to go to very binary thinking, black and white thinking. And I'm like, no, you can't have no trust in a relationship. That will never work. And I think the truth is, long term, I don't think there is sustainability or longevity if you don't have trust. But you can have bad and unhealthy relationships and still be okay with it. And so that's going to happen. I think that it's up to you as an individual to look at your relationships and say, am I okay with this at this point, or
Mhm.
do I want out? And so, personal relationship, you can walk away. work relationship, you might not be able to walk away because maybe it's your boss that you don't have trust with, but you have trust with your colleagues and the
Mhm.
company. And you need to figure out, okay, either am I going to invest in this or am I going to figure out another plan because it's not going to happen. So I think it's like the choice of how you become the main player in your story, and you get to
Absolutely.
figure out how to build the healthiest and what it is.
Well, I think what is clear when you're talking about that is your own growth as an
Yeah.
individual. Like you said, what
Yeah.
are you willing to accept? What is your definition of trust and what you're happy with? And you won't, at different points in your life, you could be totally content, totally fine with the way certain relationships work. Um, but as you get older, or maybe as you grow and you develop as an individual, you might start to realize that what you accepted years back is not what you would accept now. It's not maybe what you're going to accept in 6 months to a year time, as you change your perception of what that should be in that relationship. Um,
Well, I think
so
it's one of those
you've
things, and
adapted.
yeah, I think what you're saying, which really resonates, is until you have a relationship that has really strong trust as a foundation, you don't, I think, realize what's possible. Like, if we talk about why again, like, why do you want trust?
Mhm.
Well, we've talked so many times on this podcast about all the amazing things around decision making, creativity, the importance of failing, all of them at their cornerstone, what we're talking about is growth, development, and impact. And like why you want to get there. I think all those things cannot happen unless you have the emotional security, safety to be able to take risks, put yourself out there, fail forward,
Mhm.
all the things we've talked about. Well, guess what? Trust is what enables that. If you don't
Absolutely.
have trust, you are not going to take a risk because you don't, talking about that reliability, you don't know what's going to happen if you mess up. So why would you take the chance? You're not going to. Well, if you don't mess up, you don't have the opportunity to then learn from it. Or guess what? Maybe invent something that's completely new and be the wow moment that defines you and your career. Like,
Mhm.
so I think that people really need to understand the potential and opportunity that comes when you have trust. It also feels good. Like, it feels like
For
great
sure.
relationships. There's all those
I
things,
think
but
so.
there's like just very tangible aspects to being able to take risks, grow, develop, fail forward,
And
resolve conflict, communicate. Like, it really is needed.
absolutely, and I think that that has to start with the leadership, right? It has to go from top to bottom, and of course, trust is and would obviously be reciprocated in a relationship. But it has to start with your leadership. And I was thinking of an example earlier, because a lot of the times we might want to interpret behavior of an employee as like that's them, they're a bad egg, and like this and that. But think about an example of someone for who maybe works in a client service environment. Say they're a barista, and I'm kind of stealing from Simon Sinek here because it resonated with me. You go up, you get your
You're kind
coffee.
of, or you are.
I am, but because I'm not creative enough to come up with my own example, but I thought it was a really good example. Someone who works at a coffee shop at a hotel, Hotel A versus Hotel B. You go up to grab your coffee, you're having a chit chat. This person's super engaging. I don't even want to stop having a conversation with them, but I have to because there's a line up behind me. They clearly love what they're doing. They're engaged in their work. They seem happy. It seems like, it's an aura around them. And
Sounds like a wonderful
you
person.
want to, like, you even want to be there, and you're like, oh damn, I'm going to come back to this place next time. Well, I'm going to keep getting my coffee here. This person is loving what they're doing, and I can tell that it's genuine. I think about the same person who might work at Hotel B, whatever, in as a barista. You go up, head down. What's your name? They put your name on your coffee cup. It's spelt all wrong. They don't give a crap about you. They don't want to look at you. They look exhausted. They look completely disengaged. And we've all had those experiences when we've gone to a client service, like a counter, and been like, okay, try with the old bedside manner next time, try better maybe. And maybe I'll want to keep coming back here, right? So then you find out the difference between this exact same employee at this hotel versus this hotel is at Hotel A, their management is walking the floor. anyone, could be their manager, could be someone else's manager, could be the top boss walking the floor. "Hey, so and so, how's it going?" That's how they interact with their employees. "How's it going? Anything I can do to help you out? Do you need anything? How's your day going?" And it's true and it's genuine and they're there and they're asking the employees how they are. Doesn't even necessarily be their employee. Hotel B, managers are walking around, anyone pointing out, "Well, this is wrong. Well, you just did that wrong. Why aren't those cups cleaned like this? Or that signage is not appropriate." That person has their head down. They're worried they're making mistakes. They're not in a psychologically safe environment. God forbid they say anything to the client and then they get in trouble for it. So that's the exact same person who showed up completely different in two different environments, right? They're
Yeah.
doing the same work, but in one environment, they're engaging with their clients. Their clients are like, "Man, I'm coming back here. I'm going to keep coming here. This person put sprinkles on my freaking whipped cream, and this is awesome. And I love this. This person there gave me my coffee, spelt my name wrong. It was sloshing over the side. They didn't even look at me. They're not getting a tip. B, I'm probably not going to come back here."
Well, you know
So,
what's interesting is that both of those examples, to me, as I hear them, have one thing, which is reliability. They're both reliable, consistent about what they're seeing leadership in
mhm,
and what the expectations are. And so there might be some undertones of integrity of like, okay, they have different value systems. One is focusing on the belief that punishment is going to encourage the right behavior, Hotel B,
sure.
whereas one of them is focusing that encouragement, opportunity, resourcefulness, like, all of that is it, but they're both reliably walking the floor. And so what you're doing is training to trust a certain outcome, which is praise, encouragement, openness, or punishment, fear, anxiety.
Yep.
And so when you think about the three ingredients of like honesty, like, well, I think they're both honest about their approaches. You just don't actually trust one in a healthy way. One isn't building it up. One isn't,
Depleting it.
yeah, and so it's interesting though, because I think the employee almost trusts in both environments what they're going to get. One's just trusting a very negative outcome.
A positive versus a negative outcome. I mean, what is a negative outcome going to do for the organization in the end, or the relationship in the end? It's going to erode it, obviously.
Yeah,
And it goes right down to the whole um like productivity and
hugely.
profitability, and that a company that has absolutely terrible client service. You can think of many airlines and whatnot, and situations that you see here and there, um, which comes down to how they're treated by their leaders, by their management, not trusting in the leader, the organization, the outcomes. They don't have a psychologically safe environment. That's going to, transcribe into how they treat the individuals who are buying their product or who are
Yeah,
consuming their services,
totally.
right? I'm going to stop going to certain areas where I'm being treated poorly. Let's look behind it and see, why am I being treated poorly? Like, there are some bad apples, like we know, and we have to catch for that. And sometimes there are individuals who don't perform well or who are not into it. Maybe they're not in the right role. But a lot of the time, there's a common denominator, and it goes back to that leadership and the trust that is either being built or eroded.
Well, and you're talking about like a systematic like build of trust within the organization, but I can almost guarantee you that even if you take a step back and you look at the trust between like the executive team,
Mhm.
or let's say the head of client service, and the CEO, there's going to be no trust there. Like it all starts from one spot, and that is the CEO around their belief of, how do I want to show up? Do I care about trusting relationships? Or, do I believe that that doesn't really matter? And I'm going to use fear, politics, all these like negative, pretty good levers to get an outcome you think, but not the best outcome. And that just ripples down and then builds into systems. I think it reminds me of at Shopify. Like we talked a lot about the trust battery, and I think I've talked about it on here. And really, what it was a metaphor to describe trust, because people couldn't understand like I think very naturally you go, "Oh, you either have it or you don't." Once again, like, now I'm starting to understand what trust is, reliability, integrity, honesty. You feel like it empowers creativity and openness and, honesty. Well, it's not something that it's not a light switch. It
You
doesn't
don't
go
just
on and
have it.
off.
Yeah.
No, it's a battery, and every time you meet someone, your battery is probably, well, depending on who you are, actually, I think it's either 10% charged, might be 40%, 50%. And from there, every interaction you have either charges or depletes the battery.
Mhm.
But you need to be very intentional, especially in early stages, because you are getting data in each moment, and that reliability over time is going to charge it. And there's certain things you can do, but talking about one-on-one, like, there's, openness and honesty, there's vulnerability sharing, there's competency of skill set. Like, you are going to make a perceived notion of someone based on when you hire them, if they have the skill, or based on a friendship when you bring them in, if they have certain things that really appeal to you, you're going to build that up faster. And then how they show up, how they make decisions, how, it's going to slowly build over time. So
And
that's
that's this
individual.
vice versa, like, the same goes for the leader as well. Your
Yeah.
perceived, skill set that they have, do
Yeah.
if they come in going, "This person doesn't has never even worked in this field before, like, who do they think they are coming and managing me?" Now, of course, we can always be wary of new leaderships, and most people are, but if there is a actually perceived lack of a skill set in your
Yeah.
leaders, that's gonna be a struggle on the trust right away.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's also, to me, the consistency is the biggest thing. And maybe it's consistency and, like, honesty that come to it. Like, if I just think back about certain relationships I've had personally, mainly professionally, though, if I think in that hat, it's around what people say, the actions that follow it, and then the intentions. Because a lot of times leaders especially want to get up and create this grandiose vision,
Mhm.
say, "This is how I want us to show up. Da 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 da. And here's what we're gonna do." And then it's like, oh, no one's really looking, and they don't follow through with it. They don't give a shit about what they just told all of us.
Yeah.
And then you're like, well, that's not true. They're faking it. Like, right
Right.
away, my battery just depletes. And I think everyone would, because it's just so fake and not truthful, and you don't trust it then. You're like, ugh, how's that gonna work, right?
Well, I mean, how can it work? And like some real life examples come to me in terms of we're talking about in the federal government, we're talking about hybrid work and being in the office,
Yeah.
obviously, are 2 to 3 days a week. And of course, I know there's a lot of backlash on that. People don't want to be in the office. Um, or there's every excuse to not be there. And
Yeah.
we've talked about co-located, distributed, hybrid, what we think of all those things. But I think about me, for example. My employees only need to be in the office 2 days a week unless I need them for something else and, ask them to be flexible. I need to be in mandatory at least 3 days a week, okay? I go on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Monday and Wednesday, my team's all in there with me. We're all in there together, for the ones who are in Ottawa. Friday, I'm in on my own. And frankly, there's like almost no souls in the office on a Friday afternoon, especially on my
So
floor.
you don't have do you ever tell yourself, "I don't need to go in"?
No, and actually I feel like yes, in my mind, some days I have these thoughts going, "Ain't nobody gonna know if I
Yeah,
whether I go in or not." I could put a background on my Teams, app and whatnot, and nobody'll know. But I think it's so dodgy, and I think a lot of the thing is, what are you doing when nobody's looking? Well,
100%.
listen, I mean, I'm in the office on my Fridays unless it's been switched to a Thursday because I've got other meetings or whatever the case may be. My team, they can see when they have meetings with me, they might be at their home, but they can clearly see my background. I'm in the office right now. Yeah, it might be pretty quiet. And Friday afternoons tend to be a lot of the times where people go like, I could probably slip out early or whatever
Yeah.
and go and do my groceries or do whatever the case may be. Me, I'm at the office like I was on Friday. And I had to be down later because we were going to the Nutcracker Ballet in the
Oh,
evening.
yeah.
So I'm like taking down boards and like, cleaning things and reorganizing stuff in the cabinets and whatnot. Yeah, I mean, I could be doing other things, but this is also equally as productive for me. And the whole point is that my employees see she's actually saying and
What
doing
she's doing.
what yeah, she's
Yeah,
doing
doing
what
what she's
she's
saying.
saying,
Yeah.
right? She's telling us we all need to do this for this reason and we need to support the policy. And yeah, sometimes it might not always feel like it makes the most sense. But
Yeah.
I'm building that relationship with my employees and saying, "Yeah, I'm here and I'm doing what my, requirements are and I expect you to do your requirements and I
Yeah.
expect you to all see that as well and go, we're all in this. We're all doing this. Not me just telling you to do it and then me fucking off on my Friday."
Yeah. I think it's funny because that's a great example of almost one Friday being like, well, no one's going to know. You can talk yourself into it. It doesn't mean much.
Yeah.
But if people witness it and you don't say anything and,
Ooh.
it becomes one of many that just erodes it. And the hard part is, I think your employees would lose trust for you, but they wouldn't actually know why. Like that would just be in the back of their head, but it wouldn't be as clear that that one moment of Chelsea not doing what she said and holding us all so accountable to it
Yep.
really pissed me off. And here's like our brains don't always work that clearly,
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
so it's more so the sum of it one day, and you're like, "Well, I just don't trust how Chelsea." And then when you dig in, you ask, why?" Comes out, well, there was 2 Fridays where she wasn't there, she tried to hide it, she wasn't honest,
Yep.
she didn't do what she said, and then over here, like, she, showed up and once again, hid what the expectations were, and then, like, it adds up. It's not maybe
Well, that's
there
it.
like I said, there could be one big thing, but I think actually in a lot of times it can be
It's
small
small
things.
things. I
And
mean, all of a
I
sudden you're at 80% and then,
yeah.
a month later you're somewhere in the 50 and like where did that charge go?
And do you really notice? Like, that's a good question because I feel like I've been in relationships where people have lost trust with me. And I haven't really realized that I was at 50%. I thought I was still acting at like 80, but then you go to do something and you quickly realize that the playground has just really gotten smaller because the trust isn't there for you. And so this has happened at work. And it's like, then it also requires you to dig in and say, where did I fuck up? Like, where have I not been consistent? Or where did I not give you what you needed so that now you aren't trusting? And usually you kind of have to dig for it and search for it because it isn't that clear once
Absolutely.
again. And then it's like figuring out, and it hurts because it's talking about failure. It's usually one of those moments of where accidentally or purposely you failed, and you have to go back and really understand it so that you can rebuild that trust battery and charge it up.
And I think a lot of what goes into that trust and those strong foundational relationships is that feedback loop, right?
Yeah.
Someone's got to also be able to tell you like, "Hey, it's going down here and I'm comfortable enough to tell you that trust is eroding a bit because of this and this,
Yeah.
and I need to be comfortable enough that you're not going to retaliate, you're not going to reprimand me when I'm giving honest, critical feedback that's going to help you recognize as well if you haven't been able to do it on your own because it's been incremental or you've got other things going on. I'm going to help you to realize it, but I also want to be safe enough in my job and our relationship that you're going to react in a way that's going to be accepting of that feedback. So continuing that feedback loop, I think, is always going
Yeah.
to be massively key in a relationship with trust. And if you can't do that, I think in a lot of cases, you're not going to be able to keep that battery charged.
Yeah, makes me realize there's a few things that I did as a leader to accelerate trust early on when I had new people coming in.
Ooh, what is it?
One of them was, I mean, and also I should just say, I really think about onboarding as like building up the trust battery,
Yep.
building up the trust battery with the entity, the organization, with your leads and with your colleagues. You're getting information, context, and you're starting to display how you show, right? So, one of the things I did with any new person reporting into me was I had this Brittany blueprint. I think I talked about it on here,
Oh
but
yeah.
it talked about things like, when am I most productive? How do I like to be informed to make decisions? It had things like corks about me. It was just like
Your
how to get to know
interests.
me.
Yep.
But what it really was me being super honest and vulnerable about my strengths and
Yep.
weaknesses and expectations of how someone was going to work with me so that any leader coming in or direct report coming in could get that off the bat and really understand it so that they knew how to show up, and that allowed to build consistency in our relationship.
Absolutely. I think
Um,
that's great. I think that's great, and you could also add in you might have, like, what's your communication style? Are you
yeah,
red,
I
blue,
had
green, or
yeah.
yellow? Like, that for me really resonates because I did a
I don't know
recent.
this the color thing, but I
So it's, like, just on, like, how you show up into, like, in your communication, and so then, tricks and whatnot and ways individuals can interact with you, despite, like, you might be a blue or you might be a yellow, you might be a green, you might be a red, and one of them is titled, controlling, but I don't agree with that one. Um
it's probably because 'cause you're that one.
Yeah.
No, I'm just joking.
Anywho, but no, I think that that's really important. Like the kind of blueprint, like, what am I looking for? Here's how the best way is to work with me and encouraging
Well,
other folks to maybe do that too.
setting expectations, but it's also being super honest and vulnerable, which accelerates. You don't always need to, but just know if you want to charge up the battery, there's some like hacks to it. The more vulnerable you are, the more you expose your thinking on the why, the more you set expectations honestly, the more you show your confidence. Like, that is going to allow you to build it faster. And so, a lot of times, I would say to new hires too, and you might find me in the weeds too much with you in the beginning. It's actually me just being so curious and trying to understand how you think, how you make decisions so that we can build trust so that I can then remove myself. But until we get to
Yeah,
that spot, like it might feel like I'm
it's a lot.
micromanaging. I'm not. Like I'm just really trying to understand. And so exposure is really important because then you build it up. But once you have trust, you can back away. Like that's the
Absolutely.
beauty of trust. Talk about relationships. If you have, a relationship either with a direct report or your manager with you that's always checking things, that's always being like, let me look exactly how you did this, I can tell you they don't trust you.
Mhm.
Like, not yet. So think about how can I charge my battery with them? Maybe ask them, what am I doing wrong? What are you looking for? What can I provide you that would give you more confidence that I'm going to be making decisions in a framework that you would?
Yeah.
Like where does that go? And be vulnerable in that. And I think that that will really unlock that. I was going to be corny and be like, it plugs you into the wall to charge you up, Like it just really,
Well, in terms of outputs, in terms of creativity, productivity, but, like, think about it in a way, and I really like how you say some of that trust, a lot of that trust is really key during the onboarding phase. Like, think about this, for example. What is the result of building that trust in an organization, in a company and whatnot? It's, a higher performing organization, better client service, better profitability. Think about it in
more
a different
innovative.
sense. Like, think about in a law enforcement based environment
Mhm.
or military. Think about the Marines. And again, this is another Simon Sinek example. But, like, what about that trust in situations where it's life and death? Like
Yeah,
having
it makes the
trust.
corporate world like a nice to have,
Yeah,
but like life and death a need to have, like a
like,
must.
think about it, like, that trust with your leader, that trust with your colleague, you're going out into the field together, maybe you're going on missions and whatnot. If you don't have trust with that individual, what happens in a life and death scenario when
Mhm.
it could be life and death, where you're not sure if they're gonna show up, if they're gonna answer their radio, you've encountered a very dangerous situation. I've actually heard about this, and I'll talk about this scenario, and then I wanna go back to the onboarding piece. Um, there was a report that was done, about the RCMP. It's called the Merlo-Davidson report, and it's about a long history of, harassment, abuse, sexual assault, experienced by women and, visible minorities within the workforce, within the armed workforce of the RCMP. And a lot of the, stories that some of these women or members of LGBTQ2 plus community were talking about were the things that were happening behind the scene, in terms of, like, harassment, in terms of not supporting each other in training. We're starting to transcribe for them in the actual realm of their work. Like, if they encounter, someone with a firearm, people not answering their radio, they're alone, secluded in a place where they're trying to do a law enforcement action. No one's going to come to help them because they don't have that trust with their colleagues, and that could be a life or death situation for someone who's isolated in a scenario where they need backup, for example.
Yeah.
So, like, that just really resonates with me because I think about some of those stories, some of those encounters that I'd read, and I was like, wow, that's so serious, you know? And and that can happen when trust either isn't there from the beginning or trust can erode. Now, think about like the military or other law enforcement. When you do group training or group onboarding and you're together with each other like 20 weeks, I don't know, 8 months or something in a shared living space, you're
Yeah, you
eating
build it a
together,
lot quicker.
you're working together, you're training together, you're going through firearms training, you're doing all these things together. There's a point to that, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because you're building those relationships with those individuals who are going to be your colleagues and who are potentially going to be someone who could save your life at
Yeah.
a later date down the road, and why it's so key. So that's just where I kind of go for a second when we talk about trust, and it's not just about the end result for a company. Trust can be so key as like saving your life at one point when you're in those types of roles.
And I think, I mean, it's such a good extreme example of it that's so critical, but I think in everyday life in all of our relationships, if you don't have trust, I really think that it's not a healthy relationship.
Mhm.
I wouldn't wanna be in any committed long-term relationship where I didn't have trust. I just don't see
Personal or
this
professional, right? Why
in all accounts,
either?
that's what I'm saying, like, just
Yeah.
in date, like, it just wouldn't build up, and it makes me realize, like, for anyone listening and you're curious, you're like thinking about trust now and you're like, I don't know where I'm at, whether it's with your spouse or friend or colleague or boss, I would encourage you to actually use the trust battery metaphor and
Mhm,
say, explain it, and then ask the question like, hey, Chels, how charged up are we? From
mhm,
0 to 100, what percentage of charged up are we?
mhm.
And then I would share mine. You
Yeah.
might
Oh,
say
yeah.
85. I might say 95. Well, there's a
Sweet.
difference. So now let's dig in what that is and use those pillars. Like, is it the reliability? Like, am I consistent in how I'm showing up and how I'm making decisions? Are you understanding my integrity, like why I'm making these decisions,
Mhm.
my value system? Maybe you think stealing is fine and I don't. Like, that's a really extreme example again, but like, how is our ethical system driving it? And then are we being honest? Well, I think this moment of conversation would be extreme honesty, but are we practicing that day in and day out?
Yes.
Are we showing and communicating when things aren't resonating? And I really do think you can continue to charge up that battery just through that
That
conversation.
understanding.
Yeah,
What's
I
my
just don't think we
perception?
do it
What's
enough.
yours? Oh god,
Yeah.
I think we do it never. Like,
Yeah.
how often
Yeah.
does anyone sit down and go, "How do we think we're doing here? I'm at
Yeah.
60 and you're at 75. Okay, here's our 3 pillars. How can we do better?" Or, Where's our kind of gap? Like, how are
Yeah.
we gonna bridge that gap?" Who actually does that? But that's such a healthy way to approach things, obviously, in terms of my perception versus yours could be totally different, and
Yeah.
you
Well, and
probably
it
don't have a clue why
unlocking that.
sometimes.
Yeah, I don't think you do, and I think unlocking it just unlocks then the potential to fix it. Like, it's like anything, it's so painful sometimes to hear that you're not doing good or you're on different pages, but the opportunity that opens up to then say, "Okay, clearly, by the end of this chat, we might realize I'm just making all these decisions and I'm not exposing them to you. So you
Mm,
can't understand why I'm deciding in my life to do A, B, and C. Well, we can talk about that a bit more. Some things I might not, but you're my best friend. So I'm going to expose a lot more and be vulnerable
mhm.
and show you and also talk, excuse me, about my competence in it. And like, there's so many ways you can do it that I just think,
So identifying where the discrepancy possibly is or the gap between your self-perception and, the other individual within
yeah,
your trust relationship, which allows you to have that willingness and hopefully the willingness to bridge the gap at some point
yeah, I
to
think it's like identify and then it exposes and then you get a build and charge.
and build. And I think that that's Exactly. That leads to your own personal growth or professional
Yeah.
growth, and the growth of that relationship as well, which will potentially increase that charge on that battery.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say about that that you just made me realize, sometimes it's funny, I've remembered a few instances where I lost trust with someone, at work, and it was actually because I assumed an explanation of a behavior I witnessed that then made me go, well, they aren't, they're not acting with integrity. They're not consistent. Their competence maybe isn't there. And in having a conversation about it, I realized I was off. Like their intentions were right. I was missing a critical piece of the information. They were capable. And like that was another scary moment
Mm.
because I was like, I just depleted the trust battery
Ooh,
between
yeah.
us because I made an assumption or a narrative up in
So,
my
like, a
head.
bias
So,
in your head
yeah,
about this
100%.
scenario.
So I think it's like even more important to have these conversations and to say like, or just to explore it. When you feel, use that battery. When you feel it charging or depleting, pause and think about why.
Why
And
is it
obviously, if it's
charging?
depleting, have a conversation about it. Like it doesn't need to be, okay, trust battery. Like maybe there's a time for it. And I do think there is, but it also might just be, hey, I noticed you did this. Can I ask you why? What drove it? Am I understanding it right? Like it's just you play a critical part in a relationship, whatever type of relationship it is. So make sure you actively engage in it.
I
Do
do
the work.
just kinda like that point you just mentioned too, not just recognizing when the battery is depleting, also recognizing when it's
Yeah.
charging. What's
Yeah.
charging it? Try to recognize that because those are behaviors or those are intentions or whatever the case may be that you wanna continue to work
Yeah.
on. So,
Yeah.
you know, not just surprises and, like, you wanna actually be active on it. So, exactly like you said, do the work. Do the
Yeah.
work, folks. You gotta go to work.
That's the moral of everything. Don't be the victim. Just
Yeah,
fucking get in there and do the work.
just
Like
get in there.
honestly though.
Should we get in there and do wine?
Yeah. Should we get Okay, be right back for wine.
All right, folks, we're back with wine time. Woo-hoo-hoo.
Yes, we are. Well, you are.
There,
I'm
for
gonna expose myself and say that I'm drinking a vitamin C water because I'm hungover and I can't
ooh,
participate in the wine today.
ouch. Well, I'll drink for the 2 of us. Well, cheers to
Please
that,
do.
folks. I
Cheers.
mean, it's noon somewhere, right? It's
Yeah.
what time is it right now?
It's supposed to be 5 p.m. somewhere, not noon
Oh,
somewhere.
well, I thought it's acceptable to start drinking at noon, obviously.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
mean,
that's good. How is it?
I get the desire around noon.
Yeah. And you get older and the desire comes earlier, but also so does bedtime. So it
Oh.
kind of works out.
Yeah, I do like well, like, I mean, that goes hand in hand, right? Drink earlier, go to bed earlier. That
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
works.
It's smart.
My wine, it's a bit on the sweeter side, so it's like almost like a breakfast wine, so to speak, like if we're being honest. Um, so it's called Homegrown Riesling.
Oh,
Okay,
you're back on your Riesling
it's got
train. Oh, that's a cute little label
a little fella on there. It's an
with no
Ontario
face.
wine. Yeah, original, bold, audacious, as the name indicates. So it's like called Megalomaniac. We'll have to Google that, like exactly what that term means.
I feel like it means something. I just don't know what it is.
Like probably, I don't know. Like, well, it's got maniac at the end, so I mean, it's. I'm sure it's all
Megalomaniac.
right. Like I don't know if that you want to be called that, but someone has to Google it. Homegrown is a very proud wine indeed. Yeah, here's me, just basic bitch reading the label. But
Oh,
anyways,
megalomaniac
Meg-
is a person who is obsessed with their own power.
huh?
Just quick Google.
Okay. Well, it's not, it's not a terrible description. Um, okay. So, anyways, it's got a lovely gentleman there in a little suit, no face, and got a cute little hat on. So it's a Riesling.
What would
It's
you rank
nice.
it? You just gave us all the descriptors of the bottle, but you didn't actually tell
Yeah, I
us what
know,
you're
because I
thinking of
liked
it.
the bottle. Hold on, let me give it another sip.
Give it a little swig. Oh, yeah, just brush your teeth with that sugary wine. Yeah, yum, yum,
Yeah,
yum,
it's
yum.
on the sweeter side. It's definitely more of a breakfast wine, if we can say that. I'd probably give it like a 7.
Oh, you like it.
I mean, it's okay. It's not shite. I think I got it at Loblaws because,
Okay.
I was doing my groceries, so whatever's available in the old Loblaws, like Safeway, grab a bottle.
I feel like alcohol consumption must have gone up once they introduced alcohol into grocery stores because, instead of stopping at a second location, which most times I think a lot of people be like, nah, I don't need
Too
to.
lazy.
It's convenience. It's there.
So much convenience. And yeah, I would have to say for me, that's probably definitely the case. I mean, I indulge in smaller amounts, but often enough because I like it. So, anyways, the wine is good. I'd give it about a 7. I don't think I'd drink it necessarily with like a dinner or something, but it's a good little sipper, maybe with some apps. Definitely,
Okay.
probably a summer wine because of the
Yeah.
Riesling, a little bit on the sweeter side. I couldn't drink it in excess just because it is a little bit sweeter, but it's
Yeah.
nice. It'll do the job.
Yeah.
On an empty
I
stomach
feel
where you're looking for a bit of sugar, it's good for you.
bring that blood sugars up.
Get them blood sugars up. Oh my gosh, should I tell you something hilarious? I didn't tell you this.
Please
Uh,
do.
Um, we're doing a blood drive for work for a charity campaign, and so I was like, "Oh, I gotta go make my donation, obviously." So I wanted to
Like
go as
like a true blood bank. Like you're like
yeah,
donating a
yeah,
lot
to
of
like
blood.
a blood bank, one of the Canada blood banks.
Never done it. Don't think I ever could, but go on.
No, you couldn't do that. There's no
No.
chance, and you won't after
No.
this story either.
Oh,
Um,
am I gonna not like the
you'll
story?
be fine.
I don't know, it's giving me anxiety even just
Oh,
thinking,
just it's not that bad, okay? It's
if
not
I
gross.
pass out,
It's not
like, call
gross.
Scott 'cause, ugh, you know?
Okay. Okay, let's not be a baby about it.
Shut up!
Do you trust me? Like, as
Yeah,
Aladdin would say to Princess Jasmine, "Do you trust me?"
not really
She's
right
not
now, which
picking up what
shows
I'm putting
no.
down right now. "Get on the
I am.
magic carpet, bitch, okay?
I
Just fucking trust me." That's hilarious. Oh, I'd love a good Disney quote. Um,
as
okay.
Katie's probably laughing in the background. Okay, go on, go
Well, I
on.
don't hear her, so that's annoying, so it's clearly not that funny. Because usually I can hear her when she laughs, so no, not that funny. Hilarious. Who doesn't love a Disney joke? Katie, okay? Thank you. Um,
You
okay,
got your laugh.
finally. Okay, it's about time. So, anyways, so I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go do my donation. Obviously, I want to go closest to my home, and
Yeah,
so I want to book a quick appointment. Closest to me in my home is actually a plasma donation center. So I'm like, oh, what is this plasma?
yeah.
Like it's a part of your blood. So it's the
Yeah, yeah,
fluid
I
in
know,
which
'cause
your platelets and your cells,
it's
your
like the
red
gold.
it's the gold. Yes, it's like liquid gold. So I was like, "Oh, I'll do that, obviously. Cool." So I sign up for it, grab an appointment in the afternoon, get in there. They do all the questions, do all the things. They're like, it'll take about an hour because, your blood runs through this machine like a centrifuge. It takes out all the plasma, and then we return all the good stuff back to you. So you'll actually be less tired and stuff later because you're going to get your red, white, and your
But I
platelets
don't think
back.
you're supposed to take the plasma out of your donating. I think they need that.
No, no, they take the plasma out of your blood. It all
Yeah,
goes through a device, a machine, and
yeah.
then they put all your red blood cells, your white blood cells, and your
Back in
platelets
you?
back into your body.
Yeah, I know, but aren't you donating the blood?
No, I'm donating the plasma. So I decided to do the plasma donation because it was convenient. It was closer to my house. And so I
Okay,
decided plasma is just as good because it's used
okay,
for like therapies and
yeah.
medicines and chemo and stuff. So I'm like, oh, I'm giving some. So I'm
Okay,
like,
I'm following now,
it's a blood
following now.
product, okay? Let's
I
stop
know, but
fucking
I
get picky
just
with it. Rude. Um, okay, so I'm donating my plasma, going through it, great. It's all coming out. I'm seeing
ugh, I can't
the
even picture
liquid
it. Okay, go
gold
on.
building up. I'm like, this is great. I feel so good about myself. I'm watching 90 Day Fiance on the screen. Everyone's giving me stuff, like catering to me, checking on me.
Getting a little cookie.
Yeah, well, like I'm well supported there. Anyways, and then they got to put the stuff in. They're like, okay, great. We got all the plasma we needed from you for your donation. Now we'll start putting back in your red blood cells and platelets and all the other good stuff to get that back to you. I'm like, great, this is great. About another 10 minutes or so. Okay. So after a little bit, and they take off the blood pressure cuff so everything relaxes and everything. And then I'm like, ooh, like I'm feeling nauseous all of a sudden. I tell the girl over there, and there's a lot of them waiting around and like helping others and just like kind of observing. I'm like, why do they need so many freaking people here? Just these people are just standing around, they're watching TV. I'm like, what a sweet gig. I want to get a job here. And then I'm like, oh, I'm feeling nauseous. I kid you not, within about 2 seconds, she tells the other, like 4 people rush up to me, lift my legs, and then roll me on my side, and then I just go out cold. Like, cause they're like, "She's about to pass out," you know? They put me in the recovery position. They've got ice on my neck, on my chest, ice packs on my
I
ankles
don't
and
like
everything,
this story. You
and
knew
I
I
just, like,
wouldn't.
go out, right? Like, and I'm like, "Ugh." And I'm, like,
Why?
dying because I guess, like, just the fact that things were going back into me, like, it turned my
Grossed you
stomach
out.
all the way, and then I just, like I
It's
passed
turning
out.
my stomach. This is you know what, Chelsea? What I realized is I trusted
Enjoying
you
it.
to bring this moment to me, and that's why I didn't want you to
Well,
tell the
everyone else
story.
is enjoying it, okay? I'm
No.
just saying it, Katie's enjoying it. So anyways, okay,
Ugh.
long story short, I have to say I passed out. I recovered from it. I still managed to give my full donation, and they still managed in that time. Nothing happened with my arm. They held my arm. They still managed to give me back all the good stuff. I managed to get through my unconsciousness, my semi unconsciousness. They brought me back to life, gave me snacks. They gave me popcorn, gave me
Should have
juices. They gave
had some juicy wine right there,
Yeah,
just, the
well,
sugar content.
they said it dehydrates you, so they said, "Next time,
Oh.
don't drink before," and I was like, "Yo, I came at, like, 12, so obviously I didn't drink before, but it depends on the time of the appointment." So I said, "Okay, I'll remember that for next time." They're like, "Don't drink coffee." I'm like, "Ooh, that's gonna be difficult." But anywho, it all worked out. The amazing people at the plasma donor clinic in
I'm
Orleans,
never doing
Ontario,
this.
amazing. They were so
Fuck
good to
this.
me. Now I know why there's so many of them just hanging about. Their
Just don't
emergency
lift a leg.
yeah, their emergency response was, like, on
Oh
it,
god.
like, they were on me, like, they were like, "She's gonna pass out, like, we gotta make
I've
sure they
done
don't
that so
rip out her
many times
needle."
that I just know the feeling of exactly you talking about, like, the
Yeah.
nauseous, it gets dark in your eyes, it feels like it's closing, it's
Oh my
spotty, and
gosh.
then all of a
Yeah,
sudden, oh,
yeah.
yeah.
So, like, anyways, they were great. I just wanted to say,
Ugh,
good experience overall. I am still going back in 2 weeks because I can donate every 2 weeks to plasma, so I'll go again in 2.5 weeks, like, sometime before Christmas. I'm
how
gonna
much do
try
you
and
feel like you have to give? You've already
well,
given,
I
just
mean,
keep it for yourself
I
now.
would like to be a regular donor of
Oh,
plasma
Chelsea,
blood.
we can't talk about this.
For
It's
Christ's
giving me
sake.
the heebies. Like, I
Okay,
just
fine, I
oh,
won't
don't
tell
like
you.
it.
I'm trying to be a good person, okay? I'm trying to
I know
save
it's
lives,
great. It's
life-saving
great. It
therapies.
honestly is great. I think it's great. It's phenomenal. Good for
I'm
you.
gonna try again and try
Um,
not to pass out, okay? So, like, that's gonna be my goal,
ugh,
and to save lives and to not pass
yeah,
out. So, anyways,
yeah, it's
that's what
great.
I did this week. So that was the
Oh,
highlight of my week.
there you go.
What'd you do?
Fuck, not that. Not that.
Well, I know.
I don't even know what I did. My mind is, like, empty right now because
Oh
all I'm thinking
god.
about is this.
So sad.
What did I do? Oh, my mom was in town, and I had a wonderful my parents both were, but then my dad left Tuesday morning. My mom stayed longer, so we decorated with Christmas decorations and, just had a great time with both of them. I loved it.
Oh,
And
did you
so
go and
we
buy a bunch of stuff for the Arizona house?
yeah, like, not we I did very tasteful. I didn't wanna, like, do too many because I also hate taking it down, you know what I mean? And I'm like, "Ugh,"
So you
and we're not
hired
here
someone.
at Christmas, we're back in Canada,
Oh,
so I
that's
was
right.
like so we did, like, a garland at the fireplace, I got some stockings, I got little knickknacks, and I got this
Right.
little 4-foot tree that I'm gonna put up,
Oh,
with, like, no decorations, but it's cute. So we did that, and, yeah, it was good. I don't
bit of
know.
golfing, bit of
Yep.
dinners and stuff
Bit
like
of
that.
work. Yeah, had some
Did you do
calls,
any,
which was
like,
good.
classes? Any, like, you have all them aerobics and all those classes
Yeah,
on
I
the
did some
resort?
Pilates,
Oh,
did
that's
some
good.
Pilates, which I love. I
Lots.
actually was gonna do they had this, like, self-defense course, but it
Ooh.
was, like, 3 hours, and I was like, "I don't have that in me right now."
Okay, well, maybe not yet, but you should consider doing that.
I'm
That's
going
good
to, I wanna
when
do it. I think
coaches
every
come near
woman
you.
should.
Yeah,
Yeah,
every woman. Man, 3-hour self-defense course, that's awesome. Those are
I
scary
know.
actually because they do a faux attack on you with
I
a guy
know,
with
I
all kinds
know.
of padding, and you
Yeah.
gotta kick him and, like, try and get out, and that's super
We
important.
everyone did it in high school, didn't
Yes,
you? Like, I
yes,
know what
I
we did,
remember. I
and,
remember.
like, you I was in your gym class, you were fucking intense. I was like, you were like,
You gotta destroy those creeps,
Yeah.
like oh, I watch some of them on YouTube, though, and the ways you can get out of things and, like, get out of things if
Mostly
you're taped
hit them
up.
in their Adam's apple. It's, like, the most intense thing that they
Really?
can't handle, yeah. So that's a
Okay.
little tip for you.
And
Yeah.
I've been looking up videos on, like, how to get out if you're, like, duct taped or, like, twist tied in, like, different ways. Something just came across my YouTube the other day. I was like, "Oh, I'll watch this for a few minutes." I
Yeah.
won't
Did you
remember any
learn?
of it
Yeah,
when
I
that
was gonna
actually
say.
happens to me, obviously, but, like, I feel
Mm.
mentally prepared right now.
There you go. There you go. Okay, well, we're going long in this wine
I
time,
know.
so we'll end here, but, love you, can't wait to come back to Canada. I really
Okay,
can't.
love you, can't wait, and, well, happy winter
Don't tell me
season.
about the blood again. Yeah, we're
Okay,
done
I
with that
know.
combo.
Whatever. Okay, it's snowing.
But be a
We
great
won't talk
human.
about it. Okay, bye.
Bye.